got the recommendation from my cousin Jojo on who to speak to from the Native community. He was like, look up Bella Noka. He actually gave me your number. It was very like casual, the way that he established the connection. And then when I hit you up, you were like, oh, as far as a website to look at or social media, just Google my name. And I was like, all right, cool. So I Google it and so much comes up. But one story that specifically comes up that I really wanted to shed light on as a way to a gateway into the struggle, or at least the story and the perseverance of the Native community in the New England area, like so close to home, was starting with the story of what happened with the smoke shop in 2003. So I have Bella Noka with me here, and she's going to speak to us and educate us a little bit about that experience, but really tell us about your role and what you do in the community. So let me just give a little bit of a background to the story. In 2003, state troopers raided a tax-free smoke shop run by the Narragansett Tribe. A federal judge later ruled that Bella Noka, the tribe's youth director, would be arrested on disorderly conduct charges in the raid, along with her husband, teenage son, and daughter. A federal judge also ruled that the tribe had been operating the smoke shop illegally and that the state had the right to tax sales of the cigarettes on tribal land. They also ruled that the 7 Narragansett Indians should be punished for blocking and fighting state police during the raid. Now, I had to piece together stories from different articles and use their language, so please just look past that. But one thing that was clear to me from looking at even footage from the day is that it was horrific. It was more than just this legal interaction. And so when I read over the New York Times article, you described the incident as a rape. I don't want to re-traumatize you in telling all of the details of that story, but what effect did that have on how you view federal government and how your family has like healed from that moment? How has that affected you long term?
First of all, if you look at the article and how it's written, like most of the articles and how they are written, you can see the lack of respect given to the tribe in the article itself. When you speak of the governor of your state or a representative or a senator, they are given their formal titles.
Yeah, so let's start there. That's why,
So,
what are the words and the terminology and the language that we should be using?
so it wasn't Bella Noka and her children and her husband. It was Bella Noka, her children, the first councilman, her husband, who is her husband. It was the medicine man, the chief sachem of the Narragansett Indian tribe. It was council people, and it was a tribal police officer.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see just in their language alone where they stand. This is that systemic racism that everybody is up in awe about today. They have their way of doing things and shaping the narrative. And then people who read this who are not really familiar with what happened and coming in, um, you know, uh, and reading about it for the first time, they are, oh, no big deal, group of people, whatever. You threw down the chief sachem of the Narragansett Indian tribe. That's like us going in and throwing down the president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
To you, that is important to you, like on the Capitol, what took place was
Right.
very, very powerful, very strong. Well, this is of that importance to me, what took place here.
Yeah.
So you cannot, because you don't understand, and that's the problem with society today. They are desensitized. You know, my people come from a tradition, I mean, a culture. We feel. We're not just thinkers. We feel. And we know when something's off balance, we try to fix it in the best way we know how to.
Yeah.
They don't know this. There's something that isn't present in them that is present in us.
Yeah.
And they speak in code. They have a code that they all learn when communicating with each other. leaving out the people of color, leaving out,
Mm.
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
They leave you out, but we speak in spirit and we listen to, what people will call, um, well, if it's not science, it doesn't weigh much, but we listen to spirit.
mm-hmm.
And you fail. When you know something's wrong, you don't do it. And when you know something's right, you do it. When you do something wrong, you try to fix it.
That's it.
That's how we do
Right.
things.
You
And
don't
there's
look
not
for
a lot of,
loopholes in the law and
and if
language
you,
and
right,
technicality.
if you look at their dictionary, the book's about that thick, just to say yes or no. And
Mm.
then they got a loophole to make the yes a no and a no a yes. And then they have these alternative facts, you know? Bottom line, it's a lot of misinformation. Um, and that's a pretty way of putting it.
Yeah.
It's lies. And America was based off of the biggest sin ever, and that's the genocide of the Native American people.
Yes. And I think that's the place where the irony is the strongest. They call it a raid in this article, like this very business official operation. But there are technicalities to it, and that's what I'm trying to understand. So tell me about the land that the smoke shop was on. What is that land? Is it appropriate to refer to it as a reservation, even though of course that's something that it's been reduced to? Is it, yeah. And did you grow up there?
All of this land here, all of what you see is as far as your eyes can roam, as your heart can feel, is all indigenous land. It's all Aboriginal people's land.
Right. It feels weird even
Your
asking, like,
homes,
what is the name of the place? It's like there's not, I mean, these
it's a,
white men drew the borders, so I just
the
want to
thing
ask.
is, we don't have borders. We have
Right.
boundaries,
Mhm.
whereas we would don't go past that big rock. You know what
Mm.
I mean? There may be quicksand there. Don't go past there. They may be, you know. Um, my heart gets a little heavy when I think of the colonizers coming here and the arrogance that came with them and the hatred that they were filled with. They felt that because they were of a white race, they had this inherent right to come in and to annihilate and kill off and murder in the most vicious,
Mhm.
inhumane way ever. I mean, following that is slavery, you know? So it speaks of the heart of men. Now, we don't sit there and we didn't have ownership of anything because we didn't believe that things belong to us. It belonged to Mother Earth. It is Mother Earth.
Mhm.
You can't take it, and it's been proven. Look at all the graves. Not one of them were able to take anything with them. They had
Right.
to leave everything behind. But what you can do while you are here is make this world a better place, to
That
make it. Mhm.
I was just gonna say that that makes it even more apparent to me that what the different guards were fighting for, what the police were fighting for versus what how did you refer to them? The tribal guards or tribal officers?
We have tribal police officers. Now that land right there, um, we have over 2,000 acres now.
Mhm.
1,800, I believe, 1,900 is in federal trust.
Mm.
Um, People call it a reservation. Some people call it federal trust lands.
Mm.
Federal trust lands is what the non-tribal people call it when they're trying to gain access and control over us.
Mhm.
You know, right now, um, that this land means everything to me, but it doesn't stop with the 1,800 acres that we were given as a result of them stealing our lands. Every house, every building, everywhere you walk, you're walking over the remains of my elders, my ancestors. Now, over there, if you go to the mall, Providence Place Mall, the garage, it was built over a cemetery, an ancient burial plot.
Wow. And you hear about that.
Everybody, everybody knows about it. What they do is they give, because they already did all the digging and everything, they can't undo it. So they say, hey, take your bones, here's $1 million and go home. That's what it does. They do. Any treaty, any agreement that we ever had with the state of Rhode Island or with the federal government, every single one has been broken.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one has been broken. Not with just the Narragansetts, but with Indian country, all
Uh-huh.
of the tribes.
Yeah. And so when you think about, or when I think about what happened after the raid, how long were you dealing with those legal issues where you see that the country is able to go back on their promises and they don't have any long-term repercussions, but
How,
you deal with that for long?
well, how do you fight the state of Rhode Island? The governor puts the judges in their positions.
Yeah.
The sitting before my peers, they were chosen and they were all white, except for one person. They're not my peers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't look familiar in the areas I grew up in the community I grew up in. So I didn't go before my peers. It was dead set against us.
Mm-hmm.
The 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 judges themselves did not call my chief sachem by his official title.
Mm.
They
At
showed
least,
no respect in the
wow.
courtroom.
Yeah, at
Yeah,
least but
this
like,
is documented. This is not just me saying anything. This is all documented. So I don't, they have to embellish. They have to uh, tell a lie long enough until it becomes their truth. Well, now it's being found out that uh, Christopher Columbus did not discover America,
I
but it's
mean,
been in their history books.
hello.
Even these
Yeah,
Ivy League schools have taught that for a very long time. So
yeah,
it goes to tell you a little bit about the Ivy League schools as well. Great education, but really, what are they teaching you?
for real. And so the theme, I guess, that I'm operating out of when I start this conversation of, of what happened at the raid is tribal sovereignty. Trying to learn the language or at least some terminology. And I noticed that even in our conversation, you're having to translate for me in this like very anglicized way. And I apologize almost because it's like these are terms and legal things that are just a result of the unfortunate struggle. But my understanding is that this country created a bunch of illegitimate treaties, and pretty much have gone back on their promises. Do you guys continue to have these fights today, like even in 2021?
Yes, we do. And they make us out to be these mystical creatures, like
Mm,
we no longer exist.
that.
We're,
Mhm.
we're here right in front of your face. And what you try to do is do the whole erasure. They're trying to write us out of history. They're trying to remove us.
Mhm.
We are like these mystical creatures. No, we are not. We're here. There's doctors, there's lawyers, there's scientists, they're amazing Native American people, indigenous people in great positions right now. One going into the Department of Interior.
Mhm.
So,
Yes. Poetry.
so right. Times are changing and people are being exposed for their wrongdoing. They're being exposed.
Yeah.
And the more as history unfolds, the more exposed they will be. You sit there and you watch the president of the United States, the previous one,
Ugh.
he get caught in a lie and he just keeps going on with his lie because that they don't say they're sorry. They don't apologize. They just keep on going with the lie. And if they tell it long enough, it will become the truth. But a stop has been put to this. Systemic racism is being exposed. People are joining forces.
Mm,
White people are mixing and marrying and having brown skinned grandchildren, and their children are now being affected by, society,
yeah.
the same rules that they set up.
Yeah. And your point about treating Native people, and I even go back and forth about the terminology, but do you feel like that's okay to refer to people as Native? Or is it just like a or is it more so the tribe? Like, I guess. Do you know if there's like a better terminology? And I'm sorry if I'm like asking you an
We're the
awkward.
Aboriginal people of this land,
All right, so I'll do
known
that.
as Turtle Island,
Mm,
now known as Rhode Island, but will forever be Turtle Island to us.
all right, cool. So the Aboriginal people are not mystical peoples. You are very much alive,
No, we are not.
still doing the
No.
fight, and I think that's the main reason for this interview. I'm like, if I'm gonna
And
have
not
a platform, I want to let people know that there are people doing the work.
and not everybody looks like Pocahontas. No
Yes.
more than every white man looks like John F. Kennedy,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know?
And another thing is this mysticism that people put over what the inner workings are of the different cultures. I think people want to put a blanket statement and say that there is this one culture that everybody shares, but my understanding is that there were so many different types of peoples and families and communities that cover this whole land. And so, if you don't mind, could you tell me exactly what a tribe is? Is it a community? Is it a government structure? What is it like to you?
Well, it's a family with government structure,
Ooh,
but we
oh,
are definitely all family. And
mm,
we have to, actually, I believe that we taught the government how to structure things, but they destroyed it in the way they manipulated it in their way. Um, but as far as like you have the chief, you have the council people, you have the medicine man, you have the medicine woman, the elders who give sound wisdom, and then the youth are of a great value. There is a beautiful we argue and we fight like family
mhm,
because we all want the best for our people, but like any other family, don't mess with that family member because then everything changes. So we are all there for each other. We do support each other. Yes, we do have our differences, and they love to put it up there. Oh, here go the Narragansetts again. Well, I can sit there and watch those General Assembly meetings,
mm,
and I can sit there and watch the federal government right now, and it's a disgrace.
mhm.
It's disgusting what I am witnessing. But we are not like that. We will fight over you doing the right thing by our people, but not to the extent of what they are fighting over.
Yeah, yeah.
They're talking about hanging each other. They're talking about killing each other. Kill Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. You don't say those things.
What they did to the Capitol and the way that they just
Yes, they
continue to
did.
treat people.
Yes, they did. You don't see the Narragansetts doing like that. Who's the savages?
That's the question. And when people rebel, it's like, oh, well, or like during the riots, it's like everybody wants to say, oh, you're angry, but it's like you don't see what we've gone through for centuries, and then you see this little reaction, and all of a sudden we're angry.
Correct.
And then even reading the stories of the raid and seeing people describe you all as disorderly or the conduct as disorderly when you are all being attacked and ambushed is just horrific to me. And oh my God, it's just the hypocrisy.
It was very hard to watch them attack my medicine man and then my husband and then the police, and they came on. There was no warrant.
Mhm,
There was no warrant. There was none shown at that time. I'm sure they put one together within a matter of time,
mhm,
but at that time they did not present one.
mhm.
And they came on there, and they knew exactly what they were doing. This is usually met with a $50 fine. For selling cigarettes that are not stamped by the state of Rhode Island, you receive a $50 fine, and the police are never involved. Why is it? Because it's a Narragansett Indian tribe that you
Mhm.
come on with 50 plus state troopers, a SWAT team. You have a bus down the road. You are heavily coming in like gears of war, you know. You have dogs biting us like in the 60s.
Yeah.
My daughter get thrown to the ground. In the video, it shows them with my son, who was 15, handcuffed. And then with his hands behind his back, and the state trooper put his foot in front of him and swept him on the gravel. As far as me, I won't speak of some things because to me, what took place with me on that day is very sacred to me. And that's between me and the Creator.
Yeah.
But the way that man laid on me in those pictures, if you witness them, I can never forget.
Oh.
I can still feel the violation of his body up against me and the pounding of his body parts up against me, like if he was excited to throw me to the ground. And as a woman, I felt that filth. And I can never forget that. So when I don't know what it's like to be raped, but I do know what it's like to be violated.
Wow. So that does bring a lot of clarity to the way that you describe that interaction to even that extent.
Correct.
Brings clarity. All around it was a horrific experience. And to know that at the end of the day, for lack of a better term, they got away with it. But not necessarily, because I think that your story, I'm trying to do the part in at least showing that you guys are still doing the work. You've stayed strong, you're persevering, you didn't let that defeat you. You still have the sense of pride. And at the time it says that you were the youth director. Is that still your term in the, or your role? Or I'm sure that things have changed. So what do you do now?
Most definitely. I had taken on that role um, for it was the intergenerational program working with the elders and the youth to bridge the gap
Oh,
of
okay.
communication
That's different.
and to learn the traditional ways as well as the oral history of our tribes so that we can continue on with the language and all of the great traditions of our people. I have been working in human trafficking for a very long time. I worked in Atlanta, I work here, and I started the Red Wind, which is geared towards human trafficking. And recently we lost my niece, my granddaughter's family member. She's connected to the Mashpee tribe. We lost her due to human trafficking. So there's a lot of you know, things that I have done since then. I work in an environmental group for Native Green. Um, I do what I can to protect Mother Earth and speaking in spirit because man has a way of repeating history. And it has been proven that given them the power and the positions, they have failed each and every time. So if somebody messed up on my plumbing, I'm not going to keep calling in that same plumber to fix my plumbing.
Yeah.
I have to remove him. But they keep them because of power and greed. And that's where we fall. We fail Mother Earth. And we need to listen to her. And the people that can take that charge are the people who have been most affected. They can hear and they can feel and they know what Mother Earth needs.
You know, it's so interesting. I was going to end on this point, but since you brought up all the work that you do, it reminds me of something that Dr. Cornel West talks about, who I call him my brother because he called me his sister. So, you know, we're family now. But he talks about how the original sin of this country was what the genocide of the Aboriginal people. Of course, there was Japanese internment, there was slavery, there were so many other horrors that took place after that, but that is really the original sin. And then what's complicated for me is seeing all of the unity that's happening and all of the movements that are taking place, but not necessarily seeing the same momentum for the Aboriginal movement or the overlap. And so I really want to just highlight that. But I know that it's happening. And so have you gone to other protests, or do you do the work to like network with African Americans in the struggle across different genders or classes, or what does that look like for the community?
I have been, before it became very popular today, an activist since I was very, very young. I grew up with the Billy Taylors and Buddy George and the um, Johnny Brittles, and of course my mother, Alice Machado. You know, she raised me, so you cannot um, be an activist. That's the word activist, but you can't give that spirit speaking, right? And you cannot sit by and watch another man suffer. You're not weighed by what you have, you are weighed by what you can give to another who is in a difficult situation. You know, there's no joy in eating a steak if everyone else is hungry, you
Mhm.
know? So when you speak of Cornell West, um, here's somebody I highly um, respect and admire. And there was a quote of his that I put down, and it's, "You must let suffering speak if you want to hear the truth."
Mm.
And we are the people who suffer the most, the indigenous, the Black people of this nation. We have suffered greatly. And it's time for everyone to listen to us. And we are going to be loud. We are going to speak softly. We are going to be loud in our actions. And when you speak of protest, I have been there for on my birthday, Rashad Brooks. I was in Atlanta on my birthday,
Mm.
went straight to the march, and I protested all through that in the downpour rain. I'm sure everybody remembers that day if they were present there. There was a amazing downpour rain. I've been protesting since I was a very young girl, marching up and down the street, working for, you know, growth, moving forward, pushing when everybody wanted to stay still, doing it when it wasn't popular, being young and being laughed at because, you know, you're in the street instead of having on your, you know, your high heels and going clubbing. You're in that street
Mm.
fighting the fight.
Mhm.
You know, it was the place where I needed to be and wanted to be.
Yeah.
The park in Fox Point. I was 25, I think. They were going to make it into a parking lot. Kids were burning up. It was like a ozone layer alert. I just stopped everything and made signs and got the kids active and had every public official there to make a difference. And that park there, Talkwanton Park, which is the Paul Cabral Park,
Mm.
is now protected because somebody cared.
Yeah. It sounds like a
And
lifestyle
it takes,
for you. It's a
it's a
lifestyle.
lifestyle.
And I love how you call
It's
it spirit speaking. Beautiful.
yes, we speak in spirit.
Mm.
That's the language of love.
Yes, very beautiful. And you know, my cousin Jojo, I don't know if we mentioned it during the recording, but that's how I found out about you. He was like, "This is an amazing leader that you should know about in the community." He was telling me about what was happening with the Wampanoag tribe nearby. But he told me that you were also a good person to reach out to. What became
Mhm.
apparent to me was that there was a network in the New England area. And so I'm curious, do you interact with these communities a lot or even across the country? Have you been able to? Have you had that opportunity?
Well, within one of my just my family alone, I have Pequot nieces and nephews.
Okay, see, I
I
was gonna
have Mass Street
do.
grandchildren. I have
Mm,
Mass Street grandchildren.
mhm.
We are always at Shinnecock powwows. I go to the Gathering of the Nations powwow. So
Oh,
the word powwow originates from us, meaning the medicine man. But at the powwows, it's a place where we can go and meet and new people and share our stories and share our crafts and dance and enjoy our foods and our culture and just have our kids be a part of that rich, you know, culture. You know, I love it. I love it. Just
okay.
the drumbeat alone.
Okay, so you guys are a diverse peoples.
Yes.
And what I've also heard in the past is that it's different than Western genetics when it comes to tribal, I guess, association. And so it seems that there is mixing that happens. Is that a big controversy for you guys, or is it just something that's outdated in terms of where the conversation is now these days?
Well, I mean, before the white man had violated this space,
It's a deep question. Yeah, 'cause
um,
it goes
there was no, there was, you didn't have to worry about that.
right.
And now that they are here, you do not control where the heart may wander. Spirit again speaks
Mhm.
in every culture. White is just white, but in white, there is Italian and, well, if you want to consider them white, but because I know a lot of white people don't.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a little tricky there.
so right, so and I don't want to get into their problems, but
Mhm.
um, you know, white people are just white. Now look at Prince Harry's baby right now. Is it going to be considered white
Mhm.
or is it going to be considered black? You know
Right.
what I mean? So things are going to change at some point in time, and you can fight it all the way to um, protect your culture and your tradition, or you can embrace it and continue to teach the language and the ways and the oral history and embrace the beauty in that diversity
Yeah, and I think the mixing
and
question
remain.
is loaded. Even when I was asking it out loud, I didn't realize it, but in retrospect, there are African Americans who have some connections to an Aboriginal lineage. There are white people who claim it, or may really have
And they
some
and they
connection.
right.
They might really have it. So,
Right, there's people, I mean, look at it, America's a melting pot right now.
Mm-hmm.
But there are traditional families that refuse to go that route.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, I would like for my son to marry into the tribe. Do
Mm-hmm.
I have control over that? No, I don't. But that is a wish of mine.
Yeah, yeah, that would
You
be.
know, Randy Noka, who is my husband, we both come from the same line of Noka.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, but I can marry out, and I have, but I can stay within.
Mm-hmm.
Love is love. And your tradition, your culture, and your oral history can never die.
Yeah.
Never. Though
Wow.
they would like to kill it off.
Mhm. People have been able to preserve their histories. And that's one thing that I've commended of different Aboriginal communities is your ability to still keep your history alive, despite everything that people have tried to do, that the colonizer has tried to do. Um, I'm embarrassed to say that I was one of the people that believed for a long time that Aboriginal people no longer existed on this land. In that mystical way that you described earlier, it pains me. And again, that is why I'm having this interview. But what ways do you know that your family was able to preserve this history? Are there things, artifacts, stories, songs? How are you able to carry it on?
With the Tribal Historic Preservation Office,
Mm,
he storages all of our artifacts. Just recently, I had the privilege and the honor to bury ancient ancestors of mine.
wow.
Um, yes, and we did it in ceremony. What hurts us the most is that we do this by the ocean. We
Mm,
do our ceremonies by the ocean. Yes, there are other places for ceremony, but the ocean was the place where we spoke to Grandfather Ocean, and we received a lot of, um, I don't know, good spirit.
mm.
Right now, they stripped us from all of our ocean.
Oh, wow.
We, you have your mosque, you have your temples, you have your church, you have what it is that you go to pray, and we have been stripped from it. We don't have any oceanfront property to go and do our ceremonies. So since the beginning of time, since of them coming here, their arrival, they have thrown our spiritual balance off, and we try to maintain, and we try to um, keep it together for the survival of our people. But we need to get that balance. Taylor Swift, her home is built over our ancient burial place.
I needed just one more reason to hate her. I'm telling you, Bella, I need one more reason to hate her. And not to
Yes.
just lightly, but whew, girl.
And I don't hate the young girl at all. She doesn't
Oh, yeah,
know enough,
it's
you
not.
know, and my thing is she doesn't know enough. It's enough to get you mad. And there's a lot of things that can get a young adult like yourself mad. As you get older, you start to understand this is their way.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we take the time to teach them another way in spirit, they'll know no other.
Yeah.
Now they are going and they are saying, oh, you can't even go by the ocean because this is protecting the birds, a certain kind of bird that could be an extinct. Well, my people are almost extinct. There are 3,500 of us.
Wow.
When this pandemic hit, I tried to contact the governor's office, Claire Richards, um, and the governor. She claims as though, or they protect her, so they intercept the emails and keep her clean. But
Mm-hmm.
she's aware that we were going through some real struggles, and I thought it was very important that we come together as one for a pandemic. I don't care what your feelings are. We all have to survive. And they told me, we'll put you on a list. We'll let you know that, we'll see what we can do for you. Well, we weren't receiving our funds yet. I wasn't looking for a handout. I was looking for good communication so that we can all survive it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they shut the door on that.
So you guys didn't
They,
eventually get
right.
resources. Is that what I'm
Oh, we
hearing?
got resources because we don't deal with the state. We deal directly with the federal government.
Ah, okay.
We don't
Oh,
deal with the state at all.
oh,
We
is
don't
there
look
like a
for
different relationship between?
Yes, we don't look for, like, the Narragansett Indian tribe are the only federally recognized tribe in the state of Rhode Island. There
Mm,
is no state or any other tribe here. The state of Rhode Island doesn't have the means or the process to recognize anyone.
wow.
So it's just the Narragansett Indian tribe. Though we have had um, the state of Rhode Island tries to populate tribes in Rhode Island so that they can find a working relationship so that they can say that they're working with Native Americans,
Oh,
but they never reach out to the federally recognized tribe. These are the people who have proven and shown their lineage and proven that they are the direct descendants, of
mm,
this land, and they refuse to work with them. There is property that they are trying to give to, like, these developers when that land should be with the tribe. It was promised to the tribe. Later, they reneged on their promise. So that's the Camp Davis land. They
mm,
are trying to renege on that land and not give it to the tribe.
mm.
And this continues. This vicious cycle continues. We need our oceanfront property, and anybody with any decent heart, any decent soul, anyone who goes to church, whether it be um, a mosque or a church or a temple or whatever your spirituality is. If you believe in a higher power, we have a right to our beliefs as well. Everybody who came here and benefited off this land and are thankful for all that they have and they receive, they got it because my people were sacrificed for them to have it.
Breaks my heart hearing how we
So
treated
why
the land.
can't you be decent enough to say, I in some way want to repay those who have perished
Mhm,
as a result for someone else getting their freedom?
mhm. And I want to hear it loud. I want to see it everywhere. I want to see it on my timeline. I want to hear this conversation and discourse. I want it to be a movement that's not just coming from you guys where you're exhausting all of your resources. I know that you're getting some support in some places, but I just want to do everything that I can in my power to elevate this. So hopefully my network is um learned something from this conversation and is motivated to help out in some way. Wow. And to take it back to the raid again, because that is the story that I think is a gateway into understanding the complexities of the relationship between Aboriginal people, the state government, the federal government, ideas of law, legality, disorderly conduct, and just straight up violation. My understanding is that you still remember that event yearly or annually when you were able to. I assume that COVID has affected that, but do you guys still have that gathering at the
Yes, we
shop?
do. We still gather. We don't just gather there. We gather in other areas, even in my yard, my backyard. We have a huge fire pit. The family comes and we speak of things and we share. Like oral history is very necessary so that a lie does not become the truth. It is entrenched in our children. They know that story inside out because it's repeated over and over and over again till they get it right.
Mhm.
And they hold it inside their spirit. And wherever they go, they are that walk-in history. They don't need to lie. They don't need to tell any mistruths to create something that isn't.
Yeah.
The truth is far more interesting than any lie.
Yeah, that's beautiful that there is space carved out for that very purpose because, in this podcast, I'm trying to preserve the story in one very specific way. But I do recognize that to have that in a very authentic and purposeful, way to celebrate annually makes a lot of sense. I feel almost like I never want to retell a story and re-traumatize or do it in that way. But when I hear you talk about it as like this function of strength and unity in your community, I'm like, okay, that resonates. So I know that is still going on and I feel good. And so if I could just do my part to help spread the story, I think I've done that.
It's what's amazing is that in our family, in our culture, in our people, we don't have to say a lot of words. We
Mm,
can look at each other and we give facial expressions and body language and
yeah.
eye contact that pierces the soul,
Mm,
and they feel it, and it generates through their whole being, and they know what if you're having a good day, bad day, or if something is going on. This is the language of spirit, and
mm,
this is something that man, white man, does not know.
yeah.
They speak in code,
Yeah,
and they develop that to keep the rest of us out.
yeah. So even
We
though I tend to use a lot of words, but I
know,
truly
but
do
you speak
believe.
in spirit. You
Yes, that's what
speak
I'm
in
saying. We're having a
spirit.
conversation in spirit too. And for that, there are no words needed. Yes. Wow. Thank you so much, Bella. Is there anything else that people should know about? Anything else that you're up to? Things that people should
Yes,
follow?
my cousin John Brown, who is the historic preservation officer for the Narragansett Indian tribe, and also the medicine man of the Narragansett Indian tribe. He wears many hats, and he has a right to, because since he was very young, he was born into these positions, and some of them are inherited positions, some of them, you know, but John is a brilliant mind, and he is the person to contact if you see or discover any of our artifacts, ancient burial, when digging your home up,
Mhm.
the land up for your home. He is that person that you contact, and you can reach him through the tribe. I wish I had his contact. I would leave it with you, but I would end up leaving it with you if you give me a call
Yeah,
back.
no, I'll let you know. And then
But
I'll
John
put
Brown is
my
the
post.
name,
Mhm.
and of course Randy Noka, who I is my husband, who I admire greatly. He pretty much led this tribe when our chief sachem had passed away. He led it at a pretty young age, and he did some great things. And now we have Anthony Dean Stanton, who is also a great leader. So we have great leadership, And we're going to continue to be the mighty Narragansett, because it's not us saying that we are the mighty Narragansett. It
Mm.
is spirit. And
Yeah.
spirit has spoken, and spirit has placed us here on this land. And we will remain, we will remain.
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much. This is a great conversation. Ah.